Okay, I guess this is good enough. So I wanted to talk about objectivity and truth and philosophy um, from a philosophical standpoint, which is kind of my background, I guess you could say. Um, so I studied Advait philosophy, which is the philosophy of oneness, according to some branches of Hinduism, and I this video I'm dedicating to the Debate Me channel in particular, who is kind of an ally in the YouTube space. Um, and I wanted to, it's interesting because when Carl was talking about objectivity and the importance of objectivity and truth, it's actually something that I have come to avoid a little bit, like especially when I encounter people who um, present themselves or advertise themselves as being proponent, kind of like truth tellers. It immediately is a red flag for me because very often I find that people who present themselves that way are, first of all, setting themselves up as the most objective or the most truthful or kind of the arbiters of reality, and and using that as a springboard to be a dickhead, basically, in a lot of cases. Like whether I look at someone like Anna Kasparian, who I find, her position of, oh, you got to call it out, you got to call it out, which at a certain point, if you spend 24/7 calling things out, um, your audience is going to hear it as a kind of blur or a kind of homogenous sound of like the dog barking next door. And so I, I had kind of reached the conclusion, somewhat incorrectly perhaps, that it's not really possible for humans to reach objectivity, and that the attempt was pretty futile, really, because there will never be a kind of a penultimate understanding of reality by human beings. Now, that said, seeing the Debate Me channel and watching how Carl does things has changed my mind a little bit, in the sense that if I think people are pursuing truth the way he does it, I think that that is good. Um, and even he would, he admires the way that RBN does things, and I can't stand RBN, but I love the way he does things, which I think is a little bit to do with the fact that there's a bit more kindness in his delivery, and to me, like the question of ethics are not automatically built into objective thinking. It sort of has to come from the heart a little bit. Now, as to the question of objectivity as it relates to Advait philosophy and meditation, I had also reached the conclusion that people who typically promote the idea of being objective and truthful are being unrealistic if they think they can just do it through force of will, because of the fact that the mind is often trailing behind the ego and the emotions, so that by the time your intellect reaches an idea or reaches a piece of information, the emotions and the ego are already there waiting, like a pair of dogs, that just chased after a stick, and they're either bringing it to you or they're waiting for you to catch up. Um, so you might think you're coming to something objectively, but subconsciously you're driven by emotions and ego, and also certain kind of impulses that are left over from the Stone Age, like was it Mark Bowden from the behavioral panel was talking about the fact that when the panel is analyzing someone, even they have to think about the fact that they are defaulting to the negative, because that is a sort of survival imperative, to default to the negative to protect yourself. And and also they're analyzing a lot of people who are psychotic, or they're kind of looking to ferret out the psychopaths and psychotic killers in a lot of their videos. So naturally, the objective impulse to those kind of signs of psychosis are going to jump out at them a lot more um, prominently than sort of benign signs of something benign. And and Mark Bowden admits that, like he says, you have to think about that when you're doing this and when you're watching these videos as well. So I wanted to, in my mind, the importance of objectivity must be kind of augmented by some kind of practice or mental exercise which facilitates objectivity. This is the idea that I'm presenting to Carl from the Debate Me channel. I think that it is a wonderful kind of a goal to shoot for, an ideal. And like, I remember Sam Cedar was asked by one of the callers on his show whether, kind of fair society was even possible, and so why should we bother? And Sam Cedar very rightly said, no, it's probably not, but we still have to shoot for it and try to make things better. And I agree. And I think that is applicable to this as well. Like when you're talking about politics and when you're talking about social issues and social justice, then you have to apply the principles of objectivity and make some sort of attempt to be unbiased. Now, yes, so I'm presenting the idea that meditation is helpful to be objective, because I don't think you can just do it like that, like, and magically I'm objective. I don't think a force of will works to make yourself objective either, because of the fact that will is usually driven by the ego, not your intellect. So now when I say the word meditation, a lot of people are going to think of someone sitting in full lotus and doing which is perfectly fine. That is one kind of meditation. But meditation is basically where any exercise where you spend 5 or 10 minutes observing something, it can even be less time than that, honestly, observing something and not judging it. And so, for instance, like Esther Hicks or Abraham Hicks, one of the things that she recommends is listening to the air conditioner. And the reason that the air conditioner is such a good thing, it's speaking now, the reason it's such a good thing to listen to is because of the fact that it's boring. It's so boring that it's very rare that anyone would have any kind of opinion either in favor of or against the sound that an air conditioner makes. Now, there are people out there who may find it extremely irritating, but generally speaking, it's a sound that we tune out. And therefore, if you apply yourself to listen to it, you don't typically get triggered by your own opinions and consequently your own ego. So so this kind of exercise, if you do it daily, is actually helpful, I would say, for being objective. Now, interestingly enough, like for instance, the behavior panel, they spend hours a day looking at behavior in videos. And I think just the process of observing behavior is in itself a kind of meditation. Apart from that little thing that Mark Bowden mentioned, which is that they are kind of looking for something in particular. They're looking for psychotic behavior. They're looking for lies, basically. They're kind of going in with the intention of ferreting out the lie. So therefore, there's a risk of a bias going in under the radar and influencing the results. Now, from what I can tell, they do it very well, and I'm not accusing them of that. But I'm saying, generally speaking, when you're observing something as a kind of a meditation practice, it is much better if it's not something that you feel any kind of way about one way or the other. And that's much more beneficial. I mean, one of the reasons that people are often prescribed Sanskrit mantras in order to meditate on them is because Sanskrit is a language that not very many people understand from a subconscious place. Like it's either, at best a second language. So there's very little meaning being made out of it. And therefore you can observe it and observe it and observe it. And it puts you into a kind of hypnotic trance state, which is very neutral. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about that. That's the idea I'm presenting here, basically, is that I think that meditation is helpful if you want to be objective, and meditation can take many different forms. It does not necessarily require that you sit in robes or be really pretentious about it, or be spiritual, or believe in something supernatural in order to practice it. But in my case, I tended to approach it more from a spiritual way because that inspired me and motivated me to do it. And I think that was kind of my angle with it anyway. Okay, I'm going to leave this here and upload this. Talk to you soon.